Industry Bill had a public hearing, and members of host community producing oil and gas were to be part of that meeting, were to make their presentation in that meeting. But unfortunately, it turned into a brawl, a fight, in which we saw blows being thrown and all of that. Well, yesterday, Sunday, the Hostcom apologized to Mr. President, who we know has been in Dara for the APC registration, and also to the leadership of the National Assembly, especially House of Representatives, as well as the ad hoc committee on the PIB. In today's program, we're engaging a member of the House of Representatives representing Eastern Northeast, Eastern Southeast Federal Constituency, is also a member of the House of Reps ad hoc committee on PIB, who saw it all and wants to give us insight into what actually happened. Let me thank very specially Deacon Sergius Osasuche Ogun for joining us on the program, TMI. Brother Sergius, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Okay, let's begin by looking at the PIB. The PIB has suffered several setbacks from one legislative calendar to another. It's difficult to understand why this has lingered on for such a long time. To what extent do you think that the Petroleum Industry Bill will help to sanitize the oil and gas industry and also help to give the host communities a sense of belonging and make the Niger Delta a place that we can say the oil as a resource is impacting on the lives of the ordinary people there?
Well, to a large extent, when we can pass the PIB and we can engage enough and interact with the host communities and the oil companies, largely represented by OPTS, as oil producers and trade section. If we need to hear from them, we need to engage enough with them so that the takeaway from there will form the bulk of what will become the act eventually. Between 2015 and 2019, over $70 billion was invested in oil and gas in Africa. Less than $3 billion came to Nigeria, the biggest producer of oil in Africa. And the reason for that is simply because we have not been able to pass this bill. If you're an investor and you are coming to invest in a country, you need to know what your return on that investment will be. You have to make the final investment decision, the FID. And if you don't know what you are going to take out, you won't punch money into a country like that. Mozambique, Mobo invested $37 billion in Mozambique some few years ago. Where is Mozambique when you talk about oil and gas compared to Nigeria? So we need to pass this bill like yesterday so that monies can come in, we can do exploration and exploitation of more oil wells and then make more money, being our mainstay in this country. But having said that, if you also don't get it right by managing the host communities, you keep having high cost of production. In most countries, from Saudi to even Canada and all, the cost of production per barrel is less than $20. But in Nigeria, it's not the case. So a few years ago, it was about $40-something, then to $30-something. Now it's averaging about $20-something per barrel. So there's competition out there. You have to give incentive to the investors for them to come in here. And if we can fix the host communities, it will make things money budgeted for amnesty and all that will probably just go as a lump to the host communities. So that is why I think we need to engage more with the host communities, with the oil producers, and we have a bill that will work for everybody.
Is there any guarantee that this bill in this legislative year will see the light of the day against the background of the series of postponement that we have seen in the last couple of years? What is the guarantee that this time around this bill will see the light of the day?
Well, because of what's going on right now, like I just said, if $70 billion came to Africa in the last 5 years and less than 3 trickled in here. That definitely shows that something is wrong. Because the big oil majors are not investing here because they don't know what their return will be. So the federal government is anxious to make this happen. Everybody is anxious to make it happen. The business people, then the government on its own. So this bill for the first time is an executive bill. So now it's the federal government that brought, is the government executive rather, that brought this to the National Assembly. And the National Assembly, if you look at the speaker, he's been there, this is his 5th term. The Senate President, this is his 6th term from the House to the Senate. He's been there since 1999. So they are old. They are as old. The bill is as old as these individuals who are in the leadership of the National Assembly now. So everybody is determined, even from the business angle, to see this work. So we believe it will work. But my caution is that we should not be in a hurry to put out a bill that will not meet the demands or the expectations of the investors. Come to think about it. Investors are going to countries that are giving them incentives. We have oil everywhere. Malabo just finished, Equatorial Guinea just finished their license bidding round not too long ago. And guess what? They told those that won the license, when those were talking about signature bonus, they said, forget about that. When are you starting work? So they are giving, countries are giving incentives to investors because they want them to come and trade, so that they can earn money. So we have to be able to give them incentives to stay, the ones that are here, and for new ones to come. So if we put all this together, we should pass this bill like yesterday, but it has to be a bill that will work for everybody, work for Nigeria as a country, and will work for the investors, and then work for the host communities. And if we do that, we can bring down the cost of production, we can produce more. Look at a country like UAE. They are doing 4 million barrels per day. And we are doing less than 2 million. Look at the population of UAE compared to ours. So we need to get this industry right. And when we get it right, there are multiplier effects that will trickle down to the ordinary person.
Fantastic. I read the press release by Hostcom yesterday where they apologized to Mr. President and the leadership of the National Assembly over the brawl that took place on Wednesday during the public hearing organized by the House of Representatives. One of the demands is that host communities should have 10% equity in this oil business, as it were. How realistic is this? And then considering the fact that just at the public hearing level, we saw a brawl, that messed up things, so to speak. If this comes into fruition, that is, host communities get 10% equity in the oil business as they are proposing, what is the guarantee that the host community can manage themselves to the point that we will not have even a worse off situation where we may find leaders in the leaders in the host community being at each other's throat?
Well, I think it's just trying to give the dog a bad name to hang it. Whatever happened is something that is normal. We have political meetings and people fight. You don't disband the political party. Then you have meetings in the communities, because I will say this because of my background. I'm from the oil and gas industry.
Yeah.
You have meetings in the communities and there will be a fight. You have meeting with the youths, there will be a fight. You don't now say, okay, that meeting comes to an end. Even amongst us in the National Assembly,
looks like there's a network glitch there.
We have 40 time part. What happens after the proceedings? So for me, it's not an issue because I before Wednesday, the fight was actually on Thursday. Okay. Indicated to me that I should let the chairman know that the chairman should acknowledge the host communities, because the consultant is an oil and gas, somebody that spent a lot of years in the oil and gas, vast experience. So when I told the chairman said, okay, should he just acknowledge Hostcom? I said, no. Just acknowledge all of them and let them know that the day is Thursday, that we know they are here, we acknowledge them. And he did that. Hostcom is just one of the umbrella bodies. There are so many other bodies like that. So but that there was an issue amongst them does not mean if you give them 10%, they will not fight among themselves. The proposal in this bill is that there will be a board that will be set up that will manage the funds. And I am saying, I didn't even see the ex-agitators. All of them should come in and they should be part of the board. There is this Indorama. Indorama, as it's set up, if you remember, is a petrochemical owned by the federal government.
Yeah.
Then we were making losses before Obasanjo sold it. The very first year it was sold, the Indians that bought it were already making profits, even though they borrowed money to invest in it. Now, the strategy in place is that the community, the state government, federal government still has some shares, and Indorama, they are the owners of that petrochemical. They are making profit. I can't remember the last time we heard that the community went to block the gate of the company because they are stakeholders.
Okay.
So it's the same thing some of us will suggest to the federal government today in the oil and gas industry. Now you are saying host community. Take everybody in, give them shares. Clause 53 of this bill is suggesting that NNPC will be a wholly owned federal government company. For some of us, we are saying no, it shouldn't be. NNPC should be investor driven. So let's host community have a percentage in the ownership. They let private individuals have a stake in the ownership. The federal government should have even less, maybe minimum 10-20%. If you do that and the investors are the ones driving it, NNPC will be profitable. But the way we are going now, I don't think the federal government wants to relinquish their hold on NNPC, and that's the elephant in the room right now.
In the proposal, the percentage equity for host communities is about 2.5%, and the communities are maintaining a demand for 10%. How do you see this back and forth, so to speak, and what do you think, or how do you think this will eventually turn out for the host communities against the background of the demands that they're making? Remember, we can still talk about the 13% derivation, which is still something that is there for the same host communities. What are your take on this?
Well, the advantage of giving something to the host community is while the state government is planning, the host community can do long-term planning. If they want to set up a scholarship board or want to start a particular industry to employ people there, so that at the end of the day, because even for some of the communities now, I can't remember the last time you heard of Oloibiri. Oloibiri was the first place we struck oil in commercial quantity in this country. But there's not much there now, So if you have funds for host communities, they can set up something so that someday when there's no oil, they can, if it's a plastic industry they have there or a waste management company, we'll still be able to employ the people. So, what the bill today is suggesting or offering is 2.5% to the host community, but maybe they can up it, to maybe 4%, 5%. So at the end of the day, if the 30% derivation is still there and the host communities get maybe 4%, that's already 17%, then maybe 3% to NDDC. So what is given to people producing oil in that region will be total about 20%. That's not too much. Because if you look at today, what is driving the cost of production in Nigeria is nothing but security. Because the high cost of production is on the surface.
Okay.
It's not subsurface. When I mean subsurface, it's not underground.
Yeah.
Drilling, extraction is basically the same technology all over the world. Yeah, although we talk about different formations.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why Saudi can do less than $20 per barrel, and we are doing over $20 per barrel, and we are selling the same market.
Yeah.
So the issue of host community must be handled with care, I dare say.
Okay, I also saw one of the requests is that in requesting for 10% equity in the oil and gas business, the host communities are also saying that agency like the NDDC should be completely scrapped. Whatever resources is going there should perhaps be channeled to host communities so that they can engage the communities and impact the communities with more development. They see the NDDC as a political formation just to help win elections or sponsor elections, as they say. What do you make of this as well?
They are very correct. Because you say you have set up a commission like that for the region, and yet it's under the presidency. The governors, all the governors, the oil producing states, are not happy with NDDC. So if it's really for the oil producing states, you don't carry the state governors along in your planning. You don't even carry the host communities along in your planning, and yet the commission was set up to help develop the place. It is not working. So, well, if the suggestion is for them to scrap it, I think the government needs to listen to them. Because you cannot set up a commission to help the people, to help develop a place. And if that aim has not been achieved, you are still keeping the commission and taking at least 3% to support that commission. And the communities can't see anything. They have not been impacted by that commission. So by all means, they have every right to say it should go. And if really the federal government do not have anything to hide, they should let it go.
Mr. Sergius Ogun, what are your parting words in this PIB conversations at the House of Representatives, particularly with the presentations that the host communities have made? You mentioned a while ago that there are other stakeholders that you didn't see or so during the last hearing. What are your expectations? Are we hoping to see more of these stakeholders have an engagement with the committee, or it's over?
Well, you know the process of making law. Public hearing is part of it. And then we'll take the sum total of the submissions. You know, they made submissions, memoranda and all. So that is going to be looked at with the verbal submission they made before we will come out. But I have already advised on my own that, look, we should engage more. Whatever happened with the host community that day, the oil producing companies made their presentations. We should, as we are analyzing all their submissions, we need to call them back, but not like a public hearing anymore, where we'll sit down with them and then conference and discuss some of the issues they have raised. There's no way we're going to, like, for example, host community is asking for 10%. They won't get it. So we have to negotiate, a middle ground. Same thing with the OPTS. There are facilities they're asking for. We'll let them know what we can do and what we cannot do. So after that, we'll come up with something. I had engagement with those, they have a petroleum industry bill in Ghana. They took our bill, dusted it up, and they worked on it in Ghana. And under 6 months, they passed it.
Wow.
Again, under 6 months, they started amending it. There's no perfect law. And the guys that put that together, when I engaged with them once during the OTC in Houston, and they said to me, they were very humble about it. That there were people, the environmentalists, the CSO, they all came some few days when they were going to pass this thing in the parliament. And they took all their submissions and said, okay, calm down, we'll look into it, but let this be go. Since we have the cooperation of the legislators.
Yeah.
And that was what happened. So they brought in some of the things that Fed work and used it to amend the bill. And the bill is running very well now in Ghana. I mean, for over 5 years now, I guess. Even 7 years. So we should also do that, engage the host communities. These former agitators that we are spending so much money on amnesty today now. We hurriedly went into amnesty. Now there's no exit date. Who does that? So this should be an opportunity to cure all that defect. And if we can do that, we're going to have a good bill and to be for the good of this country. So my advice again is engage, and engage.
Are you saying that amnesty should be scrapped?
Well, with the host community fund, I don't see the need for amnesty anymore. Because it's just been a drain pipe. Can you remember the last time we had somebody in charge of amnesty as a head advisor to the president on amnesty and served that a whole term? No. There's always been one corruption allegation or the other, and we're talking about a lot of money. So we need to channel these monies going to the Niger Delta properly so that the people can benefit from it and it can bring down all the agitation in that region. It's only when we achieve that we can have cheap oil. Yeah, because now you have companies drilling, they have houseboats. The boats are higher, you have military men there sleeping in those boats. You are paying for all this. You are taking equipment to the rig, whether it's land, whether it's sea, whether it's swamp. You are carrying escorts and all that. On the rig side, you have military men, barracks, and all. It's all costing money. It's all adding up to why the cost of production in Nigeria is very high. So if you can manage some of this and you have the host community as shareholders, as partners in this, all that would die naturally. You know?
Fantastic.
So,
just a few days back, two communities in the Niger Delta got a judgment at one of the international courts against Shell over oil spills and pollution. What does this portend for the region, particularly for those communities whose water bodies, the environment, have been polluted over the years?
Well, it's just for the oil companies to work more safely. Yes, if the pipes are vandalized or where they have a case. But in any case, what most people don't know, people talk about the AG pipes and all. There's insurance. There's insurance. If the cause of pollution is that the pipes have aged and that's where they are busting, the insurance will compensate the community. But if it's a case of vandalism, who's going to compensate you? There's nobody. So, but all the facts are there, because I know back in the days, you have a spill. DPR is invited in, but today there's a body Nostra that handles all that.
Yeah.
But any government body, it takes forever for them to respond, unlike the private sector. So those are some of the clogs, and I'm sure that with the PIB and involvement of the community, some of these things will be taken care of. Because for any spill, it will mean that the community knows that if it's a barrel that will go out, they know they have lost that money. It should be in the pipe that should take it to the terminal where it will be sold, either for local production or for export. So they will not even want to lose a barrel. So we must take them along, we must carry them along. They must be critical stakeholders.
On a final note, some civil society activists have, over the years, campaigned for the need to leave oil in the ground because of the environmental pollution associated with it. Against the background that right now, the world is talking about going green energy, renewable energy. How realistic is this line of thinking within the context of Nigeria?
Well, we still need money to invest in that. Green energy is not in the sky. It's not just going to drop and be available to everybody. So you still need to raise money from fossil fuel to invest in green. Even the Saudis, they are doing that right now. You know, even NPC, there's a department like that, but it's not funded. You know, so we can take the oil from the ground and invest it in green energy, which is the future. And the earlier we do that, the better for everyone. Almost every nation. That's what's happening. Like I said, if it's happening in the Middle East, where they have such a huge reserve, they're really looking at the future. So if we can maximize the profit from our oil, we can diversify. We have the land, we have what it takes, you know, to go green.
Are you in any way bothered by the state of Ogoni? I recall some few minutes back you talked about Oloibiri, where the first commercial quantities of crude oil were exploited, but is in a sorry state. Recently, there was a UNEP report for the cleanup of Ogoni. More than 10 years or so after the report came into existence, HIPREP as a committee or an agency to oversee the cleanup of Ogoni. There's still sort of a snail's speed in dealing with this issue. Are you concerned, and what are your thoughts in terms of fast-tracking this process?
Well, again, I have issues with government. Government does not operate the way private sector operates. The blockers that you have today in high-prep operation in Ogoni land is basically government. If you have to do things and then you are handing over to Ministry of Environment for certain approvals, Ministry of Environment is basically staffed by civil servants. So there's no urgency about this whole thing. I would have thought they'll set up a special body to supervise high-prep and not leave it to civil servants. So the slow pace of work is largely can be attributed to Ministry of Environment. And for me, again, it's government. Government is not set up for business, you know. So if you want anything serious done, don't hand it over to government. Set up a body of technocrats. If fund is available, then you know, get them to run, and they will deliver in good time. But we can't see that today, and it's not going to happen. If we leave this present structure to manage high-prep, it will not work. And the people, the community very soon will get frustrated and problem will start all over again. And the way I've seen this country, we always like to firefight. It's when there is a crisis that people begin to make all manner of promises. The Ogoni people said that Buhari came during the campaigns in 2015, 2014, 2015 election, and said to them, he's going to take on this if you vote for me. And he blocked the four local governments deliver their vote to as a claim to Buhari. So he's trying to honor it by doing whatever he's doing now. But by the time you leave it to civil servants, nothing will come out of it. So I hope they have a rethink and then put a body in place to supervise that project.
Thank you very much, Barrister Sergius Sasichi Ogun, for your time with us on the program this morning on IG. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's been a member of the House of Representatives Ad Hoc Committee on the Petroleum Industry Bill, Barrister Sergius Ogun, giving us a very robust insight into the happenings in the oil and gas industry, particularly the recent development at the National Assembly, where there was a brawl amongst members of host community of oil and gas producing. And we hope that all of those things will be distilled and resolved amicably, and let the PIB bill become a law that will help to restructure governance in the oil and gas industry and make more monies available for host communities and bring forth development. Agencies that are moribund and are not living up to expectations scrapped, and more money is available to the communities. It's the TMI Monday. We'll take a short break. We'll still continue with our conversations on the public hearing by the House of Representatives on the PIB. David Ogolo is in the house. Barrister Adam Saliu is in the house. They'll be joining me shortly. Please stay with us.